Greetings, mortals, and welcome to another session of the Infernal Court in Musical Hell. I'm Diva, your judge, jury, executioner, and enigmatic narrator figure.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
What is the longest-running musical of all time? Nope. Not even close. At a little north of 17,000 performances, the longest-running musical of all time is the original off-Broadway production of The Fantasticks, which opened in 1960 and ran for nearly 42 years, then was revived in 2006 and ran again for over a decade. With its sweet, nostalgic Harvey Schmidt, Tom Jones score, and a universal story of innocence versus experience and love lost and regained, not to mention a small cast and simple set making for low operating costs, it's easy to see why the show has proven so durable. So how does the film version wind up as the next offender in our court? Like the story it tells, the film version of The Fantasticks treads a very familiar path. It was the pet project of its director, Michael Ritchie. It was initially intended for a high-profile Thanksgiving release in 1995, but poor test screening led it to be shelved for 5 years. And it might have remained there, or been quietly cast into direct-to-video purgatory, if it weren't for the fact that MGM's contract with Schmidt and Jones required the film to have a theatrical release. So, after a re-edit by Francis Ford Coppola, yes, Francis Ford Coppola, which trimmed about 25 minutes from the film, it was quietly released into a grand total of 4 theaters in the fall of 2000. Which is, and I say this with no exaggeration, a demonic-level example of weaseling around the wording of your contract right there. Despite getting a Blu-ray release in 2015, this movie has been largely forgotten. But here in Musical Hell, we never forget and we never forgive. Give me a break, random allusions to good musicals is the only way I can survive dealing with the terrible ones. Let's examine the case of The Fantasticks. The movie takes place in kind of a remote, empty landscape that looks like the Southwest in the universe where the movie Toys is set. A carnival is setting up shop in the area, which seems like an odd choice as there are only 2 houses in the entire vicinity. In one house lives Bellamy and his daughter Louisa, played by the girl Richard Dreyfuss was perving on in Mr. Holland's Opus. Louisa spends her time studying books on kissing and strolling around singing her I Want song.
I'd like to be not evil, but a little worldly wise, to be the kind of girl designed to be kissed upon the eyes.
Said I Want song, much more, is sin number 1. It's a beautiful song, like all the songs in the score, and Jean Louisa Kelly sings it well. But her manner is too affected to come off as genuinely naive and romantic. It's really hard to play an innocent like Louisa without coming off as cloying, stupid, or aggravating, and Kelly is mostly a combination of the latter two with a pinch of boring thrown in. The editing of the song is also random and directionless. Look, she's strolling down the lane. Now she's balancing on a fence. Now she's standing framed by another fence. There's a sameness to both the mood of the shots and the performance that prevent the song from having any kind of arc, let alone the longing anticipation and joy that it's supposed to convey. Next door to the Bellamys live Huckleby, who is busy constructing a barricade between the houses, and his son Matt, played by Joey McIntyre of New Kids on the Block. New Kids on the Block? Your parents' equivalent of One Direction? Damn kids, get off of my fields of asphodel. Anyway, Matt and Louisa are in love, but must conduct their affair in secret as their parents are feuding.
Lunkhead! Fuss budget! Nothing sets the heart aflutter like a good old-fashioned feud.
Ha, psych. The twist is that the whole star-crossed thing is a setup by the dads, who want their kids to hook up and know that forbidding the romance is the easiest way to make it appealing. And now that their children are besotted with each other, there's just one slight problem.
There's just one thing missing for our hero and heroine, a climax.
You watch what you say. You're talking about my daughter.
Mind out of the gutter, Bellamy. He means that they need to stage a convincing and dramatic ending to their staged feud. Luckily, the plot convenience post includes a flyer advertising the services of the carnival's head honcho, El Gallo, so they go off to find him, unaware that Matt and Louisa have arranged a tryst at the carnival's moving picture show.
Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?
But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun.
Well, good thing they're the only two people in the theater, and that they're so smitten with each other they don't notice how the movie they're watching actually ends.
We are just like Romeo and Juliet. We're happy, young, and bubbling with love.
Matt and Louisa express their feelings in the song Metaphor, which is sin number 2. Or rather, the way the song is staged is. I like the idea of juxtaposing the love song with the silent film, but what the here is going on with the blocking? It's too theatrical to work on film, and yet it's not stylized enough to make the theatricality feel like a stylistic choice. It's just weird.
My mystery
His mystery
of love.
Seriously, are you having a romantic interlude or doing improv exercises? The kids see their dads sneaking around the carnival and have to sneak away themselves, unaware that their fathers have come not in pursuit of them, but of the mysterious El Gallo.
What the devil?
That's a service.
Red flags here!
Meet El Gallo, enigmatic stranger, purveyor of fantasies, and also sin number 3. In the stage play, El Gallo is also the narrator, putting him in the ambiguous position of being both a part of the story and an outside influence and commentator on it. He also acts as a sort of trickster antagonist for Matt and especially Louisa, representing a tempting but destructive parody of the adulthood they're growing towards. Think of him as the MC crossed with the Goblin King. You're pretty close. So as you can imagine, the character needs a certain amount of suavity. Jerry Orbach played him in the original cast. Jonathan Morris isn't charming enough. Louisa seems fascinated with him, mostly because she literally doesn't have any other options. And the ambiguous nature of the character isn't handled very well. Is he a con artist playing the rubes for what he can get? An illusionist who uses his skills to give the characters a much-needed dose of reality? Something genuinely supernatural? It's not that the movie doesn't answer these questions, it shouldn't, but it doesn't make the most of the mystery, resulting in an effect that's more muddled than intriguing.
It's all scenery. Smoke and mirrors. Well, what do you think now?
You're controlling the elements? That's a pretty bad way of convincing me that you're not some magical man of mystery. The dads explain the situation to El Gallo, and a plot is established. They will hire him to fake an abduction attempt of Louisa, which Matt will be allowed to foil, reconciled parents and happy endings and dancing all around.
How much for such a drama? Oh, that's in your depends. Depends on what? Or what else? The quality of the rape. Rape? No! No rape!
Yeah, just in case Bellamy's freak-out didn't clue you in, El Gallo's creepy insistence on using the word rape as a synonym for kidnapping is very deliberate values dissonance. The original production got really audacious with it by giving him an entire song based around the word, but this proved to be a bit much for just about everybody, so it tends to get replaced with a less cringy alternative in most productions, including this one.
The people are cheering. I'm standing center leering. I wear a cape and snare, a snare that's really quite endearing.
The dads agree to a first-class abduction experience and opt to customize it with some Shakespearean actors. Because, hey, if we're going to do the Romeo and Juliet thing, we might as well fully commit to it.
Sir, the players have arrived.
Well, if that doesn't summarize the experience of this movie, I don't know what does. Sin number 4. For something that turns so much on illusion and magic, this movie is depressingly prosaic. It's the basic problem with doing the Fantasticks as a film in the first place. This is a very meta-theatrical piece. Its charm relies on acknowledging the limits of the staging and encouraging the audience's imagination, which ties into the conflict between illusion and reality, which is the story's central theme. Film, as a general rule, doesn't support that level of abstraction very well, and when you put El Gallo and company in a firmly grounded real world, it becomes that much harder to accept them and their story. There are some attempts to play with the metafiction aspect, like when El Gallo conducts the soundtrack for Louisa's staged abduction, but Michael Ritchie never achieves the stylized and, well, fantastic mood that would elevate these rather common characters to something extraordinary. But the dads are impressed, so they sign on the players, who consist of an aging Brit named Henry and his assistant Mortimer, who dresses in very inappropriate cultural appropriation style and who specializes in death scenes.
And that's the short version.
You should see the long one. While the stage is set for the mock abduction, Matt and Louisa are off being awkward young lovers together.
I didn't expect it to be so cold.
Oh, well, here, I don't need this.
Oh, no, you'll freeze.
No, really,
Really,
please.
I'm fine.
I'm not cold at all.
You're gonna wear it?
Big red flags!
A storm is coming in various literal and symbolic senses, so Matt and Louisa comfort each other with their big love duet, Soon It's Gonna Rain.
Then we'll let it rain, we'll not fear it. Then we'll let it rain, rain pell-mell.
Which displays about as much chemistry as inert gas. In fact, the lack of chemistry between the romantic leads is sin number 5. They don't look like gawky teenagers having trouble expressing their feelings. They look like two drama students who don't like each other much but have to do a scene study together for class. And because there's no chemistry, it's hard to root for them as characters. They should be naive and unpretentious, but Matt comes off as insipid and Louisa as irritatingly high maintenance. It doesn't help that this song is also hamstrung by its staging, including a bizarre use of blind man's bluff.
And we'll not complain.
Happy ending.
Luckily, the mock abduction starts before things can get too kinky, and it goes without a hitch. Matt sets off in hot pursuit as Louisa is spirited away, he engages in mock swordplay, and she's tormented by various carnival implements. That's not nearly as creepy as it sounds.
Let her go! What? I said, let her go!
Very poor choice of words.
Credit where it's due. The score, especially as orchestrated by frequent Sondheim collaborator Jonathan Tunick, is gorgeous. Enough to earn a saving grace, in fact. All goes as expected. The rogue bandit is thwarted, the lovers are reunited, the dads are reconciled, and everything ends happily. Except we're only halfway through the movie, so it only ends happily long enough for the whole thing to get subverted.
Take away the golden moonbeams. Take away the tinsel sky. What at night seems oh so scenic, maybe cynic by and by.
Here's where the prosaic setting really fails the movie. There's no real difference between the charming but illusory world that the young lovers imagine and the harder, more complicated reality they have to face in order to develop a real relationship. With everybody sniping at each other, it doesn't take too long for the dads to spill the beans on the whole phony kidnapping thing, and their children are so shocked that their acting gets even more dull surprisey than before.
You two paid for it? All my heroics were make-believe?
Matt tries to prove himself by fighting El Gallo for realsies this time, and promptly gets his ass handed to him, which puts him in a bad mood, and Louisa's bad boy fascination with El Gallo isn't helping either.
Well, maybe I can be the villain. He seems to have all the good scenes. With you, anyway.
Alright, a lot of the acting isn't good in this, but Joey McIntyre's in particular is getting to the point where I have to put it on the sin count. His line delivery is horrible, and he never seems to manage any emotion beyond pleasantly bland and mildly petulant. Leaving the heartbroken Louisa behind, Matt runs away to see the world. And the longer this movie goes on, the more it has an incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed-up zombies vibe.
Ah, good old-fashioned nightmare fuel.
Turns out running away to see the world means heading back to the carnival. Seriously, I know there's not a whole lot of options in this area, but why is everyone committed to this half-mile radius? Then again, Matt hasn't learned do not drink smoking potions handed to you by strange carnies, so perhaps it's best he didn't make it all that far. Louisa also turns up at the carnival and has what in the hands of more capable and committed performers would be quasi-sexual tension with El Gallo.
That's where you gave me a bruise.
Oh, Louisa, honey, you should form a support group with Billy Frank from Glitter. Louisa wants the tall, semi-dark, and vaguely mysterious stranger to whisk her away because she wants... Well, she's not quite sure what she wants, but figures being whisked away by a tall, semi-dark stranger will cover it. El Gallo takes her away to see the world. Okay, he takes her away to see a Tunnel of Love simulacrum of the world. And here's where things get all symbolic, because he gives her a mask which allows her to laugh off all the unpleasantness she sees, which mostly involves Matt enduring various forms of abuse.
That boy. They're gonna kill him.
Well, remember, it's unpleasant.
Yes, of course. The mask. Oh, I see. It's a game. I just love classic sports.
It sounds nightmarish, and it should be, but it really isn't. Which is why this song, Round and Round, is sin number 7. Here's where the movie needed to be visually inventive in a way that the stage production couldn't be. It makes sense for Louisa to describe her change of perspective in an abstract minimalist stage play, but on film it comes off as redundant. I think it would have worked better to actually see the mockery of truth and contrast it with the reality. Also, neither the camera work nor the choreography matches the song's mad crescendo at the end.
All we'll do is just, all we'll do is just, all we'll do is just, all we'll do is just.
Louisa is completely dazzled by El Gallo, and he's all, it's all just smoke and mirrors, but she's too starstruck to heed his warning. So, with a creepy kiss on the eyelids, he agrees to let her join him and sends her to pack, but demands her favorite treasure, a necklace belonging to her mother, as a pledge she will return. You can probably tell where this is going.
Yeah, all right. Move it out.
Meanwhile, Matt is walking off his bender and wanders back to the carnival where he started the here? This is the Hotel California of sideshows. Where does this movie take place? Sartre County? Anyway, he sees El Gallo about to abscond with the necklace, gets knocked to the ground again, and the carnival leaves with Matt battered and Louisa devastated.
El Gallo!
Or mildly miffed. So the lovers, less naive and more wise, reunite by the side of the road and forge the beginnings of a deeper relationship. As the snow falls, they walk home and are reunited with their fathers, who we haven't seen much of for a while, but I'm sure they feel terrible about their whole part in this, and El Gallo sings the musical's theme, Try to Remember, which would be a lot better if we didn't have a whole bunch of flashbacks to remind us of the yawn fest we just sat through.
Try to remember, and if you remember, then follow.
Take away the simple theatrical magic of the Fantasticks and expose it to the harsh light of the silver screen, and what are you left with? Well, the score at least. The score is still charming and delightful, and if by some fluke you haven't seen one of the bazillion productions of this musical that have been mounted in the past 60 years, you should give it a listen. But Michael Ritchie is so intent on trying to capture the feel of the stage version that he doesn't recognize a different approach is needed to replicate the effect on film, and the result is just dull and common. And since these characters seem to be the only inhabitants of their bland universe, the Court of Musical Hell thinks it fitting that they should just stay there and not trouble us any further. So let it be recorded, this session of the Infernal Court in Musical Hell is now adjourned.